Today on Hands on Photography, we're going to talk about the highs and the lows of portraiture. No, not like that. I'm talking high key lighting and low key lighting portraiture. I promise you, you're going to be able to do this too. Stick around. Hands on Photography is brought to you from LastPass Studios. Using the same password everywhere is a security nightmare waiting to happen. LastPass easily creates unique passwords for every site. Visit lastpass.com/twit.
This is TWiT.
This episode of Hands on Photography is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect your online privacy with one click. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/hop. Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Pruitt. This is Hands on Photography here on TWiT TV. I hope y'all are doing well. I'm unbelievable as always. This is the podcast where I like to get together with you all and talk about different tips and different tricks that are going to help make you a better photographer and a better post-processor. Now, this week, we're actually going to talk more on the photography side of things instead of software, but we'll get to that in a second. If this is your first time catching the show, welcome to you and thank you for joining in. Appreciate you hopping in and helping to grow the hands-on photography community. If you're in your favorite podcast app right now, while you're listening to us, go ahead and hit subscribe. Subscribe to the show and go ahead and check out all of our previous episodes here on TWiT TV. Now, if you can't find us in your podcast app, we do have a bunch of different subscription options available on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or even our YouTube channel. You can find all of that on the website, twit.tv/hop. That's twit.tv/HOP for hands-on photography. Thank you all again for the continued support. And I appreciate you again growing our hands-on photography community. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with this week's episode. Now, folks, when I started this show a year ago here on TWiT, my premise was to help you get better as a photographer and a post-processor, but I wanted to deliver it in a format where anybody could really just sit down, watch these episodes, and learn the basics and the fundamentals and build up each and every week. And I think I successfully did that. So now, with that said, it's time to sort of dive more into some of the more advanced things and different techniques and different styles, if you will, when it comes to photography and when it comes to post-processing. So if you have any questions about some of the topics and terms that you may hear me discuss throughout the show, go back to some of the previous episodes. I referenced them there and give you a bit of a startup or tutorial to get you going and refresh yourself to get started with some of these topics and different ideas and styles of shooting. Okay. Now, so first, before we get into the subject matter of the week, I want to get into a little bit of feedback back on episode 50, I believe. Yeah, episode 50, where we talked about getting fall photography squared away and getting prepped up to start shooting fall photography, because depending on where you are, fall photography is pretty daggum spectacular. Man, it is. And I got a lot of feedback from some people, and one in particular sent a bunch of photos over to me, and I said I would love to give a shout out and share these images with you, the hands-on photography community. And these images come from Mr. Philip Hale, and I'm going to hop on over into my computer here on Lightroom and show them to you. Now, this is from Philip Hale, and I don't see what he used to shoot this with, because quite frankly, it doesn't matter. But it looks like it was shot at 1/5 of a second, so somewhat of a slow shutter. And you also can notice that he shot it at f13 and ISO 100. So he's got plenty of daylight out there to work with, shooting at a smaller aperture, even though the number's higher. So that means he's trying to get a lot more in focus within the frame. And quite frankly, he did. This is absolutely beautiful. I don't know where this is, but Philip sent this over to me. And I said I wanted to share it with you all. But I love how he has this reflection here. There's ways that you can create reflections like this inside of Photoshop and make them look really, really natural. I can't tell if this one is faked or not, but it doesn't really matter. It's it looks pretty real to me because look at how you have all of these ripples here in the water. But this is absolutely beautiful. Great color. I love the golden color here, the amber and the blue. It's just a great combination of colors. It's just really pleasing to the eye. Outstanding, Philip. Outstanding. And then there's this one. The next one, this is probably my favorite of the bunch. This one right here. This shot right here hit me right in the heart because it reminded me of the last place that I lived there in North Carolina, about a quarter mile, 400 meters from my front door. There was a river, and I would walk down to that river several times a week to go shoot because the views were always magnificent. And there was a view particularly like this that had all of the white water and just a bit of a winding spot on the river. And depending on where you were, you could shoot little tunnel vision views just like this one here. This is absolutely beautiful. This really reminds me of the East Coast and getting out there and getting all of that fall foliage photography where you can see the different colors of orange and red and yellow mixed in with that green as the season changed. And it's absolutely beautiful. Philip, this is probably my favorite of the two that you sent me. Much respect to you on this one. As I zoom in a little bit more, got a lot of heavy processing on it. Looks like he cranked up some clarity and did a lot of noise reduction to try to really boost up the details inside of the limbs and the leaves here. This is just nice work to you, sir. Make sure you give him a follow over on Instagram. We'll stick it up on the screen here. It's Hail Philippe. I guess that's how you say it. It's HALEFELIPE over on Instagram. Give him a follow. And thank you again, Mr. Phillip, for sending those images on over to me. Really does look good, brother. All right. So before we get into this week's episode, I want to take a few seconds to thank this week's fine sponsor, the folks at ExpressVPN. This episode of Hands On Photography is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Incognito mode does not hide your activity. That's why when I'm home, I never go online without using ExpressVPN. The app reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers. Your information is 100% encrypted, and you won't even realize it's on. Yeah, it's that fast. I see it all the time on my phone. Protect your online activity today with the VPN rated #1 by CNET and Wired. Visit my exclusive link, expressvpn.com/hop, and get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/hop, expressvpn.com/hop to learn more. And we thank ExpressVPN for their support. All right, folks, what are we going to talk about this week? We're going to talk about some portrait photography. If you look back at the previous episodes, I shared some different tips on getting proper lighting, light stands, and light modifiers. And all of that was used to help build you up to get ready to shoot some portraits. You can shoot portraits with your smartphones. You can shoot them with your DSLR or mirrorless or what have you. We can do this. Now, with these shots that I'm working with today, primarily, you're going to see them shot with a DSLR or a mirrorless camera and a speed light of some sort or some sort of really, really bright light source, because it really does make a difference. And the types of portraits that I'm talking about today are high key and low key. High key lighting portraits, low key lighting portraits. What exactly is that? Sorry for hitting the mic, Mr. Victor. Don't hurt me. Okay, so let's look at what high key lighting is. High key lighting is a type of photography where you have your subject matter. It's usually a model, but it could be a product or anything like that. But your subject model is pretty tight in the image, and the lighting on them is really, really bright. Really, really bright. Typically has a white background. Not always, but it typically has a white background. Really, really strong key lighting, bright lighting, almost to the point of it's being overexposed. If you pull up a high key lighting photograph and look at it on a histogram, you'll notice that the histogram tends to lean to the right hand side. When we talked about what a histogram displays. This is something that it tends to scare people off because they're thinking my shot is overexposed. But if you look at the image itself, there's a reason the histogram is showing peaks and clipping on the highlights and on the white side. And that's because of the type of composition. You use high key lighting for things like a magazine shoot. Usually think of, say, like those magazine covers of Vanity Fair and things like that. Commercials tend to shoot in high key. High key is even used in video. Again, think back to the commercials. A lot of commercials tend to have this bright, white, airy look and feel to them. That's high key lighting because it's punching in so much light in there, and it gives you a whole different type of energy and a whole different type of feel. Now, conversely, on that side, you have what's called low key lighting. And when I say high and low, I don't necessarily mean the positioning of the key light. And when I say key light, I'm talking about the light that is the primary light source on your subject. Here in my studio, my key light is right here off to the left of the camera. So it's shining directly on me and giving me the spotlight, if you will. Now, low key lighting, total opposite of high key lighting, where you're going to tend to see a bunch of bright white light colors in high key. On low key, it's typically a dark black background, definitely shadowed, really, really deep shadow. And most of the time it's black. It doesn't always have to be black, but you really are focusing on a lot of shadows and a lot of dark backgrounds within the image. And then that one key light is on your subject, and your subject just sort of blends and falls into those shadows quite gracefully and beautifully, depending on the composition. And it's, of the two, this is probably the easiest type to shoot, but fortunately, you have me. I'm going to teach you how to shoot both of those styles. I'm going to show you how to shoot high key. I'm going to show you how to process high key. Then I'm going to show you how to shoot low key and show you how to process low key as well. But that's for another episode. But let me show you a couple examples when using high key lighting, what the images will look like. I'll show you some high key and some low key. So let's switch over to Lightroom. Now this image here, this is something I got from Creative Commons for use. And this is a perfect example of high key lighting. You have a white background. The highlights are pretty well pronounced on the model. Looking right here at her hand, it's really, really spiked the highlights here. The lighting hitting the model tends to flatter the model's face and smooths out the model's face. You don't get a lot of shadows on the face. And a lot of times, more light on a subject's face will smooth out the skin and make them look better. A lot of times. It's depends on your choice and depends on the model's preference. But again, the big thing is that bright white background and just how airy and light this image feels. And even look at the histogram here in the upper right corner. See, there's a spike all the way over to the right-hand side of the histogram, letting you know we got a lot of data coming from the white side of things. Okay, so that is a high key. So let me switch and show you another high key. This one here. Now this one is high key, but notice the difference of it being in a grayscale. This isn't necessarily black and white. It's more of a grayscale, but it's totally fine. It still has the high key effect. We got flat lighting right on our model. You can even see the light hitting the model's eyes right here because it was set right above their head. Ideal for high key or even low key lighting. You'll see that momentarily. But you got the white background, really, really high highlights on the model's face, smoothed out the skin and everything. Very, very fine example. And again, don't assume that high key has to be done with just a white background or it has to be done in grayscale black and white. High key is also considered here in color. Now, this is an image. I shot this at CES 2020. Yeah, CES 2020 at the Canon booth. And it happened to work out that where this model was standing on the stage, it gave me a nice high key look. Now, this is a raw file. I have not processed this file, but it gave me a nice high key look. Check out her face here. See, these highlights are really, really bright. And I can do some post-processing on this to really make this stand out more as a high key photograph. I won't do it just now, but it's definitely possible because of how that light was set up for the models on the stage. So now that is high key lighting. Let's take a look at the other side of things. Let's take a look at some low key lighting. So we'll hop over to the grid. Here's a shot of myself, because sometimes I like to just play around at home and work on some self-portraits because I'm not a selfie person. So this is a way for me to work on taking self-portraits and just trying something new. Anyway, but this is a low-key lighting. I have one light source, as you can see, hidden right there on my forehead. And that light immediately falls off as it goes to the left of the frame, and it goes into black, dark shadows. Just a little bit of light hitting on my chest, a little bit of light hitting on my head, and a touch hitting on my hands, just enough to let you know there's some details here that could be addressed or noticed in the image. And it's perfect for low-key lighting. I could do even more post-processing on this image and further darken this left-hand side of it and just make it black or even crop it out, and it will still qualify as low-key lighting. Another example is this image here of the partner in crime, the one and only Queen Pruitt. This one, you still have that one light source hidden right here on her face, illuminated through her glasses on the eyes, a little bit of nice soft highlight on the nose and the cheeks. Just again, using that light and shadows to help shape the face and show her little features and details, just to add some more character to the image. And then it goes off into deep shadows in the background and off to the left, just as the previous shot did. And this could use even a little bit more post-processing if I really felt like it. Let's see. We'll just, I could crop it down, something like that. Cropping always helps. Boom, that's done. That's it. Easy peasy. Now, there's more to it when it comes to processing these images, but fear not, I'm going to walk you all through setting up these types of shots. But yeah, those are some examples of high key and low key lighting. Again, when you're setting up these shots, it's real important to understand the fundamentals of it. First and foremost, the lighting that you're going to use. You're going to need some type of large light source, whether it's a speed light, whether it's a monolight. I believe I shot these with a speed light and some light modifiers. I have a couple different light modifiers. We talked about light modifiers on a previous episode. I believe it was episode 44, where we talked about the different types of light modifiers. For high key, if you can possibly get a white backdrop, use a white backdrop to set that up for you, for your subject matter or for your model. If you don't have a white backdrop, it's okay. You can do that in post too, but it's a lot easier if you can get these things squared away in camera before even trying to get them into post processing. I promise you. But of the two, the high key lighting is the hardest ones to shoot because it's a lot of variables to consider. The low key lighting is going to be a breeze in comparison to the high key lighting. But anyway, I'm going to show you how to do that in a future episode. All right. So that's going to do it for this week's episode, folks. Boy, I can't talk today. I really do appreciate you all joining me each and every week on the network. Now, do me a favor. Tell somebody else about the show. Tell somebody else about hands-on photography. Let them know that you've been watching. Let them know that you've been taking time with your smartphone, DSLR, or mirrorless, and you've been able to see how your photography game has increased and gotten so much better in a fairly relative short amount of time, just with simple practice and simple tips and tricks, all shared right here on this show. They can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and on our YouTube channel and Spotify. We're all over the place. So go ahead and share the show out with some other folks. I appreciate your support. And if you have any questions, feedback that you'd like to send to me, feel free to do so via Twitter or Instagram. My accounts are ant_Pruitt on both of those platforms. So Twitter is ant_Pruitt. Instagram is ant_Pruitt. Or if you just like to share some photos over email, shoot an email to hop at TWiT.tv. I'll be more than happy to check out your images and feedback and even offer image critiques if that's something that you'd like to do. And if you'd like to have your images featured on the show, make sure you mention that I have your consent to show your images on the show, because I don't want to just show your images out there and you not give me that consent. That's not cool at all. All right, folks. Thank you all so much. Continue to safely create and dominate. I'll catch you next time. Take care.
Hey, I'm Jason Howell, host of Hands on Android. Every week, I take a look at the Android operating system and the phone that you have in your hands to tell you how to use it better. Is it tips? Is it tricks? Is it little known secrets, experiments, even emails from fans of the show? You name it, we talk about it on Hands on Android. You can subscribe by going to twit.tv/HOA and make sure that you do that so you don't miss a single episode. We'll see you there.